Hi, Kristen. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so we have dropped a copy of the PowerPoint in the chat box. If you do not see it, you might have come in after we put it in. Jennifer will put it in again, so give us just a second. I know she's going to drop it in. You'll be able to click on that, download it to your computer, so you'll be able to follow along. So hopefully you're here because you're part of the 21-22 cohort up for audit. Crazy that we're talking 21-22 already, but we are here for that. So this presentation is being recorded, and if you want a copy of the recording after the fact, you can contact Julie, and she'll make sure she gets that out to you. So my name is Colette Sullivan. I'm the Federal Programs Coordinator for Special Services at DOE. I've been with the department just over 3 years, and before that I was a special ed teacher for 30 years, primarily with students with autism. And I am here with Leora Byris and Jennifer Gleason. Ladies, if you could come on and say hello, please.
Sure. I'm Leora Byris. I'm also a former special educator, and I joined the department about a month after Corrective.
Thank you, Leora. Jennifer?
And I am Jennifer Gleason, also a former special ed teacher, and I have been with the department for almost 2 months. So
you don't get to say you're new anymore. It's official.
I'm very new.
And Julie Pelletier is here with us as well. So thank you for joining us. If you haven't already done so, please put your name and where you're from, as well as your role in the chat box, so that we can just kind of keep track of who's here, make sure we capture everybody. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about the desk audit process, as well as all of the required indicators. We'll talk about the self-assessment. We're going to talk about the due dates for the desk audit, as well as the dates for your on-site visit. Hopefully we'll be doing on-sites this year. We will talk about the parent and staff survey, and then any what's next. We only really have one chat box check-in built in, but Jennifer is going to be manning the chat box throughout for us. So if you have a question, we're a small group, so if you want to just come live and ask it, that's fine. Or if you want to just pop it in the chat box and Jennifer can just respond as they come in. So we're going to follow a similar protocol to what we did last year, which we had to do because of COVID, but it seemed to work out really well. So what we'll do is mid to late August, you will receive an email. The directors will receive an email from one of us on the team. We have broken up the cohort across the team so that we are all responsible for a group of you. You will receive an email from one of us, and it will include all of these documents. So it will have a copy of this PowerPoint, all of the required forms that we want you to consider. We will include the B11 initial evaluation timeline materials, the electronic monitoring tool, or the EMT, in both Word and Excel format. We will send you to the monitoring timelines. We also have a PowerPoint about how to choose the best IEP for your self-assessment. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So we'll include that, and then we'll also have a document that will outline next steps. So you'll get quite a robust email. So I apologize that this is small, but this will be included in the email. And this just outlines the monitoring timelines. So Julie Pelletier will send out a letter of notification and instruction by July 16th, and it will outline all of these pieces. And here comes my cat. It is not a Zoom meeting without a cat. So it will outline all of these pieces, also all of the desk audit pieces, which will include those policies and procedures, the forms, the B11 pieces, as well as the B13 screeners. And those will all be due on December 1st. And we're going to talk about each one of those. And then the other dates are on here as well for pre-findings, summary of findings, and then your corrective action. But we'll walk through those when it gets a little bit closer to those pieces. So as you know, OSEP has made audit and monitoring a requirement. And our process really stems from the memo 0902, which really outlines how we are to review and request corrections. and it was issued August 25th, 2017. So with that, in conjunction with the Maine Unified Special Education Regulations, or MUSER, that's where we really work to pull the components of the monitoring and supervision itself. So again, the letter of notification will be sent by July 16th, and the desk audit components are due December 1st. And these are the desk audit components, and we will talk about each one of these. So B11 is the first part, and you might know, I'm sure you do know, actually, this is an indicator, and it requires us to report evidence to the federal government around compliance. And this B11 is around child fines, so it's that percentage of children for whom initial evals were completed within 45 school days. So in order for us to look at this, we look at it, we look at the procedural safeguards, and the code for that is INR 1, and we look at that child fine component, which is INR 3. So the documentation of the procedural safeguards, we like to see that at the point of first contact. Generally speaking, that would be at the first advanced written notice, where you're talking about referrals, where you're talking about the evaluations that are to be completed. So we would want to see that. We would also want to see the written notice around that meeting, as well as the parental consent. And the parental consent needs to be dated, and to be clear, we need to know when it was received back, so we know when that 45-day timeline starts. When you're working on this, we are also asking you to look at reasons if there are any delays. So we have outlined acceptable and unacceptable reasons for delay, and we will include that in the email as well. And the copy, we would want to see a copy of your 2021 and 21-22 school calendar. And when you send that to us, it's so that we can count out the 45 days and make sure that that timeline is met. So it's really important that you really clarify for us exactly what your school days were, because as you know, they can be different from district to district, especially if there are snow days in there. So just make sure that that's easy for us to see. Your B11 submissions should include the first 10 parental consents. Remember, these are for initial referrals, through March 1st to October 15th. So that's the time frame that we would like to see those referrals come from. We need to see the front page of each completed eval that was documented on the signed consent form. And it's really important that it's noted on that page when that eval was received back in the SAU. We also take a look at eligibility forms, and it's best that those correspond to the 10 consents. So we need to see 3 SLD eligibility forms, 3 adverse effect eligibility forms, and 1 speech and language. And part of what we look for with those is, of course, to make sure that the forms themselves are filled out correctly. But we also look in the corresponding written notices to make sure that the forms were discussed at the meeting themselves. So just a statement that states that, you know, just eligibility forms were completed and discussed as a team, or something along those lines. So we do need those corresponding written notices. Now, COVID has really impacted and certainly affected what school days look like across the state. So again, when you are considering what 45 school days looks like, really just think about the number of days a week that all students were in session, and make sure that that's clear, again, on your calendar, what your school days were. If for some reason the evals were not completed within the timeline, on the B11 tracking tool, and I'm gonna show you that in just a second, you would just document the reason beyond the 45 school days, why that happened, and then the number of days. And then if for some reason the eval wasn't completed by the time we ask you to submit the desk audit in December, just let us know that, and then we'll circle back around to make sure that it gets completed on the other side. So this is a document from IDEA that outlines acceptable and unacceptable reasons. So really, when you're looking at this, you can look at this in terms of COVID and how that might have impacted. And if you're not sure sort of where your individual students might fall, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to talk to you around this piece.
There's a question in the chat about hybrid and counting the number of student days when the students were physically in the building.
So if the students were or if the school was open for students to be physically in the building, then that would be a school day. So this is the B11 tracking tool. So pretty easy to fill out. Along the left-hand side is just the child's last name. Then you're going to date when the consent was received back from the parent, because that starts that clock. Then when were all the initial evals due? When were they received? What is the number of school days from the date the consent to eval was received to when the evals were received? And then if you went over the 45 school days, how many, and then why? And then column 8 is just that procedural safeguard. Was that documented, yes or no? Any questions about B11 before I turn this over to Leora about B13? All right, Leora?
Okay, so B13 is also a required indicator, as you all know, which means that we need to report this data annually to OSEP for the state performance plan. And it is reported as all or nothing. So I'll get into that in just a second. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So this indicator talks about secondary transition with IEP goals, the percentage of youth ages 16 and up with IEPs with measurable annual IEP goals and transition services. So section 9 of the IEP, as you all are aware of, is the post-secondary transition plan. This section needs to be completed for each IEP during, but not later than the 9th grade year, and that's MUSER, the Maine Unified Special Education Regulation, Chapter 101, or age 16, which is IDEA. So when we look at your final submissions, we'll be looking at students that are age 16 because, again, that data gets reported directly to OSEP, so we need to make sure we're following their guideline for that. So there's 8 different pieces of the B13 indicator itself, and this is where I got a little ahead of myself. Every piece of the indicator has to be compliant or the whole plan itself is 0% compliant. So there needs to be appropriate measurable post-secondary goals that are annually updated, and we check the written notice for that, that there are age-appropriate transition assessments, that there are transition services, including a course of study, that there are annual IEP goals in section 5 that are aligned to the student's transition services needs, evidence that the student was invited to the IEP team meeting, that's why we asked to see the advance written notice, and if appropriate, that any representative of participating agency was invited to the IEP team meeting with the prior consent of the parent or the student who has reached the age of majority. So we need to make sure that all 8 pieces of the indicator are compliant in order to report the data as compliant to OSEP. So what we're going to ask you to do is just send us, as part of your desk audit process, just section 9 of the IEP, not the whole IEP, not the written notice yet, not the AWN yet, just section 9 of the IEP. And we're counting these as screeners. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at them and we're going to give you feedback on whether they're compliant or not. And then in a few slides, I'm going to tell you about some PD we have already on the calendar so that we can hopefully get our compliance data into a really good place for next cohort. So this is what I was just talking about. We will look at your final submissions when we come on site. So we're not going to ask you to send those to us. We're going to, when we are on site with you doing, our file review, we'll look at everything there. So that kind of lessens what you need to submit to us. So we scheduled a B13 training on January 5th. It's at from 9 to 11 and 1 to 3. It's usually about an hour and a half long. So we schedule a little buffer there just in case. This is a live link, so you can go sign up for it now. We do ask you to consider having a member of your team register and attend. It will be recorded, just because, compliance, we want to make sure that there's a very clear understanding throughout the whole field. So we're asking all of your desk audit information to be submitted by December 1st. We'll evaluate it and let you know how things look. And then if you or one of your folks is able to come to one of the B13 trainings, we don't start visits until March next year, which we're all really, really excited about. So we're really excited to go out into the field and see you guys next year. But anyway, so that gives it from January until March-ish, April, possibly May, to address any compliance issues in annuals as they come up in that section 9 of the IEP. So that's kind of what our thinking was, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. But if you don't want to wait till January to do the training with your folks, you can always reach out to Julie and she'll set something up for you. So we ask that final submissions be based on child count. So the bigger your child count, the more we're going to look at. And again, we're going to look at these when we're on site, so you don't have to submit them to us. So if your child count is 0 to 49, we'll look at 2, 50 to 199, we'll look at 4, 200 to 399, we'll look at 6, 400 to 750, we'll look at 8. And if you have a child count of more than 750 students, then we'll look at 10 of your plans.
Leora, can I jump in real quick before we move on?
Please do.
So I think that I misspoke about the question around hybrid, and I think my response might have been confusing. We're looking at in terms of school days. So it's not necessarily about in building, it's really about the instructional days. So I don't think I answered it, and Jennifer's going to clarify it and put it in the chat, because I think that I made it muddy. Sorry about that, Cynthia.
Perfect, thank you. If anybody needs further clarification, just, you can put it in the chat box and we'll do our best to address it. So this is the accuracy document. This is something that we ask the directors to sign when you are submitting your evidence. And as you can see, it just is asking you to certify that to the best of your knowledge, everything that you're submitting gives an accurate reflection of your process in the district. And you can either sign it and mail it in, or you can email it to the monitoring email address as well. Okay, fund authorization letters. So our guidance is to include an individual letter for each person and not to include one general letter for the district with a list of people who can make those financial decisions for the district. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and again, someone will come to an IEP meeting and ask to see a fund authorization letter. So if you have yours and you can make that decision, that's great. Now that person knows that you have that authority within the district. You don't necessarily want that person to know who else has that authority as well. So that's kind of what our thinking there is, that having an individual letter for each person would be best practice. Summary of performance. We did a little, I think it's about a 20-minute recording of summary of performance. It's pretty short. So you all are aware of this. The summary of performance is a required document under IDEA. And it is basically, I like to think of it as an introduction of the child to whatever environment they're going to next, whether it's work environment, a community environment, supported employment, whatever that looks like for the child. This document gives an idea of what works for them, to be able to participate and access whatever's going on around them in a really meaningful way. So we need to make sure that there's data involved. It says specifically on the thing itself, in the questions, to have data-driven answers. So section 1 of the summary of academic achievement, section 2 is a summary of functional performance. And You need to show that the form was given to the child prior to their exit from high school in June of this year. So that's what we're looking at is your summary of performances from this year. So you just want that to really accurately reflect the child. Okay, letter of assurance. So this is in lieu of sending us your policies and procedures. If you are a district that has recently broken away and made a new SAU, AOS, union, however that looks, then we will ask you to submit your policies and procedures because we probably don't have them on file. It's, however, that doesn't happen too often, so we probably do have them. So all we're asking is for the director to take a look at your referral, your child fine, your restraint and seclusion policies, and make sure that they're up to date, and then write a letter of assurance that either, yep, they're up to date, we're good to go, or that they need to be updated and that you will begin the process to do that. Teacher certification is run for the entire district. So you will get information about special education and general education. We just ask that you forward the information about general education to your business manager or whomever in your district does the certification stuff for general ed. For special education, we need to see evidence that that the issue is being addressed. So that could be a snapshot of the certification website, prior to the issuing of your summary of findings later on, showing us that the issue's been taken care of. It could be a letter of assurance that you are working with that person and that you're taking care of it. There are different ways that you can do this, but you will only be contacted about this area if there are issues. So if there's no teacher certification issues in your district, you won't hear from us about this. So this is another piece that is run for the entire, this is run for the entire state. So you might hear from us, even if you're not in audit, about B4, which is manifestation determination. So this is about disproportionality and suspension and expulsion of children with disabilities. So again, this is run annually. If you have issues in this area, you'll hear from one of us and we'll tell you what we need from you. Basically, we'll send you a list of students who are addressed in this, and we'll ask for you to send an IEP, written notice, et cetera, for us to look at, and an updated disciplinary policy. But again, you won't hear from us if this is not an issue. So this is new. So all of you guys who have been in audit before are going to be like, oh, this is new, and it is. So we need to look at abbreviated day data. So as part of your desk audit, we're asking you to send us a list of any of your students who are currently in an abbreviated day and how long they have been in the abbreviated day. So if you have any students who fit this criteria, we're going to look at those files when we come on site, but we would like the list of children and the length of time they've been on abbreviated day submitted with your desk audit. Okay. So if you don't have something here, we have a lot of districts in Maine with very small child counts, and it's entirely possible that you might not have 10 initial referrals. So please just contact us. We're really easy to talk to. We want this process to be as easy for you as possible because then it's as easy for us as possible. So we all like that. It's a win-win. So just contact us and we'll work with you and we'll be able to figure it out. Parent survey is B8. So this is a required indicator. Julie will send you a link via email, and this is open for the entire school year. It's Qualtrics. It used to be SurveyMonkey. That closes in late June, and then we process the data and we give you the results of the information, usually in mid-July. The end size is 5. So if you have 5 or more parents who respond from your district, you'll get district-specific results. If you don't meet the end size, you'll get cohort results. So the staff survey will be provided to you from Julie as well. And this will get sent to you about a month before our scheduled visit. So about a month out, we will reach out to you and say, hey, so here's the link for the staff survey. This is when we're coming. This is how many people will be there, all that kind of stuff. The staff survey is a Likert scale. It has some open-ended questions. It takes about 10 minutes. And again, this closes in June as well. And then we analyze the data. And if the N size is met, you'll get district-specific results. If not, you'll get the cohort results. Anything in the chat box? All right.
Great. Thank you, Leora.
Sure.
All right. So let's talk about the self-assessment. So the self-assessment will be mailed out to the directors, and it is going to be, it's on the electronic monitoring tool, the EMT. What we are asking you is based on your child count. We're going to give you those numbers in just a second. We are asking you to review a number of disabilities, including at least one with multiple, students with a variety of ages, across multiple case managers, ethnicities, and schools within your SAU. And we are asking that you please not send graduating seniors, because if you do, there's no way that we can show evidence of correction for them. So this is the table for the self-assessment. So based again on your child's count, you can see how many files you would need to review on that EMT. Also, as part of the self-assessment, we are asking that you please review one student from any out-of-unit placement that you might have, if that student has been placed within the past 2 years. So just go ahead and review that student as part of your self-assessment. And then we are asking that you send any corresponding advanced written notices or written notices that document that entire process for that student's out of district placement. So just show us the evidence and show us how you got there. When we come on site, and we are so hopeful that we get to come on site, we will sit down with staff, whoever's available, whoever you want to be available, that's completely up to you. And we will ask to look at all of the files that you reviewed on your self-assessment. And what we will do is we will literally go through each of your findings, each of the areas you looked at, and we'll work to verify your scores. If you have staff who want to sit down with us, we've gotten a lot of feedback about the fact that that's been very good professional development. So a lot of times what happens is we might have a case manager come in and we'll review 3 or 4 of their files, and then somebody else will rotate in and we'll review their files. You know, it's encouraged, but it's certainly not required. We understand that staffing can be challenging and finding subs is tough. So however you choose to manage that is perfectly fine with us. Another thing we really like to do, it's actually my favorite part, is to go visit special ed programming if possible. And I mean, those visits are usually 5 or 10 minutes. We just pop in, we just like to see the space and see children at work. We don't generally do any more than just pop in and see. And then as Leora mentioned, we'll review your B13 programming on site. One of the documents that we'll bring with you when we come on site will be this one. And this will outline all of the pieces. It will talk about pre-findings if there were any. We'll talk about if there's a post-visit letter, if there are DIB 1 findings, and those are disability misalignment. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then we'll talk about summary of findings or corrective action. We will leave this document with you after you're on site, so you'll know exactly where you are, exactly what you need to do. So that post on-site visit letter could include guidance based on file review, like if there are pieces that we just want you to be aware of, if there was any corrective activity that needs to take place. For example, if there were isolated deficiencies, which takes a look at those areas that were not captured on the EMT, or again, that disability misalignment. So an example of that would be if a student was identified with SLD, but there was no academic programming to address that. So that would be an example of a disability misalignment. And Leora, I just realized I jumped in on you. I wasn't supposed to go yet, so I'm going to let you jump back in.
You're perfectly fine if you want to continue. It's all good.
Go for it.
If it's something that special educators do is sort of roll with things. So, okay, so the summary findings, the SOF, this is generated after your pre-findings post-visit letter. This is a summary of all the findings, your compliance percentages for the test audit, self-assessment, and the on-site visit. So the timeline for this is unique to each individual district. Like right now in the 2021 cohort, we're issuing SOFs because that's where they are in the process. So it comes towards the end. And this gets sent to you after we come and the desk audit's all submitted and we look at your B13 and all that fun stuff. With this SOF comes the non-compliant summary of findings, which tells you what will be on your corrective action plan. Because if it's not 100% compliant, it means it needs to be addressed. That comes from that 0902 memo that Colette talked about. So the non-compliant summary of findings documents all the areas that are less than 100% compliant, and it shows you everything that will be on your corrective action. Your corrective action plan gets sent to you after the summary of findings and the non-compliant summary of findings. And it looks at all areas of non-compliance, and you have a year to close that. And we have some different training and PD stuff that we've been doing the last couple of years with this, and Colette's going to go over that in a few minutes. Okay, I think it's you.
All right, sorry about that.
You're fine.
Peace. All right, so again, the on-site visit dates will be included in your letter of notification and instruction, which Julie will send out in mid-July. All right, so what's next? When you submit your information, we ask that you label it. As Leora mentioned, we're wrapping up our 2021 cohort, but we are also working still with our 1920. So we can sometimes be juggling at least 3, sometimes 4 cohorts at a time. So we ask that you just label what you're sending us. It just makes it easier for us to sort of grab it and make sure it gets to where it needs to go. Again, we broke up the cohort among us, so you'll know exactly who your contact person is. If you have any questions about your EMT or any of this information, reach right out, but don't feel like that's the only person you have to reach out to. You can reach out to any of us. We'll get back to you. We are asking that you please do not send a PDF version of your EMT. I know that sometimes the computers at the state don't always work as beautifully, as seamlessly as we like with the computers in the field. But if you send us a PDF version, we really can't do anything with it except literally copy it, you know, screen by screen. So if you find yourself, if that's the only option you find, let us know and we'll try to figure something out for you to make it a little bit easier. And just when you're sending your evidence, again, just label it, try to organize it in a way that makes sense. And please do not send anything by fax. Most of us are working remotely, at least a couple days a week. And even when we are in the office, the fax machine is nowhere near where any of us sit. So, and it's very unreliable. So we just won't even, it's just not a great way to send that secure info. So we do ask that you send it to this monitoring.doe@maine.gov. That is a secure mailbox that all of us on the team have access to. You don't need to sanitize anything. It is very secure. We're the only ones who see it. Or if you're more comfortable, you can certainly send it in the mail. We ask that you do attention to Julie, and what she'll do is she'll date it, she'll open it, and then she'll make sure it gets to whoever it needs to get to. She does a great job with that for us. In terms of professional development, like Leora mentioned, we have, as part of your prong 2 component on your CAP, you have to do professional development. So we offer a couple of different options for you. As we mentioned earlier, there is a B13 training for transition already on the books, but we also will offer an IEP training, as well as what we call a CAP workshop. The CAP workshop is generally designed to facilitate the closing of your CAP itself. So towards the end of your year, if you contact us and say, you know what, I just want to get the rest of this off my plate, what we'll do is we'll send you a letter that will tell you exactly what we need you to have available. We'll come on site. Again, hopefully that's an option. And if it's an option, that's what we'll do. We'll come on site and we will sit right with you if possible, or we'll just go through the files and we will look for evidence of the information that we would need to close your CAP. At the end of that CAP workshop, your CAP will either be closed or you will have a very, very clear sense of exactly what remains. So it might just be something as simple as we follow up with a letter that says, okay, you need to give us these 3 pieces, and that's it. So it just helps facilitate that process. The last piece is a CAP specific training, and it is exactly what it sounds like. So the IEP training is very broad. It hits all of the components of the IEP. The CAP specific training would be very, very specific to you and what the findings were on your CAP. So if you only had 10 findings on your CAP, we would pull those 10 findings right out and we would train very specifically to those. Both would hit the prong 2 component. So it's just a choice of which one would work best for you. And again, reach out to Julie. She manages our schedules. I don't know how she does it, but she does it. So she's the one you'd want to talk to about any scheduling. We also have this, and Julie is looking for a date for this. And what this is, it is how to choose appropriate IEPs for your self-assessment. Very catchy title, I know. But what this is we will go through each finding on the EMT, each one of the codes, and we'll tell you exactly what we want to see, exactly what we look for in terms of compliance, so that you'll know exactly what to send us. And it really just, again, it's just another way to sort of give you that information up front so that you can really think about what you're sending to us, and hopefully that will make the process easier and make your CAP a little bit smaller. And we, just a shameless plug here, we have our upcoming office hours already scheduled. So what we're going to do, and this was, we developed it this way because this was what we got from feedback through a couple of polls that we took through the field. So second and fourth Wednesday of each month from 3 to 4, starting in September and going all the way through to the end of June, we're going to focus on content. So Wednesdays will be content, and the last Friday of each month from 11:30 to 12 will just be open office hours, question and answers. And that's been really great. Like, we'll have somebody just pop on, you know, we will be there. You don't have to stay the whole time, but we will be available from 11:30 to 12. And if you just have a quick question, I just want to talk to you about present level on this IEP. Can I run this by you? Yep, great. Thank you. I'm done. So people sort of filter in and out based on what they need, and that works out really well. The topics that we are planning for, and we are always open to feedback about others if there are things that you are more interested in. We're going to talk about referral to special ed, talking about that evaluation, the eligibility forms. We're going to take a hard look at alignment in IEPs in terms of that programming piece. So you've got the referral, you've done the evals, now what, and how do you make it align all the way through? We're going to pull the IEP apart piece by piece and really look very, very specifically at each area in terms of writing a compliant IEP. We're also going to do the same thing with compliant transition plans and really look at robust transition plans and that extended eligibility piece, really thinking about that. We also are going to have a guest speaker. We're going to have Roberta Lucas or somebody from her team come on and do transitioning from CDS to public school in May. And then my personal favorite is the data series. We did it once before. We're going to go through that again, probably collapse it a little bit, and just do that piece one more time. That is the link there, the calendar. If those trainings are not up, I know Julie is working furiously to get them up, so you'll be able to find those pretty quick. Any other questions or anything that we need to stop and address before we wrap this up? Anything in the chat box, Jennifer, that you didn't already answer?
Nope, no more questions. I put the PDF of this PowerPoint, the certificate for contact hours, and the link to the calendar in the chat.
Well, you're all over it. Thank you. Yeah, so in the chat box is a contact hour, so you can go ahead and just download that, save that for your files. You'll get an hour for today for participating. Again, here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. You know, you get off this call and you're like, what do they mean when they said this? Feel free to reach out to any of us at any time, and we're happy to walk you through this process. All right. You guys we're done a little early. You got 20 minutes of your day back. That's good. Is there anything else that we can do for any of you, or any other questions or anything? No? All right. Then we will let you guys go. It is a beautiful sunny day. Hopefully you can all get out of your offices and go outside and get some sun. Yeah. All right,
Thank you
everybody.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.